Today we're going to speak about my time in Bloomingdale, Michigan. Bloomingdale had about 600 residents. It had one stoplight, had one grocery store, and one drugstore. Okay, but it had a little high school. You almost knew everybody, almost. I started there as a freshman, graduated as a senior. My freshman year was 1949, and my senior year was 1953. It was a great time. It was different than Chicago. So you're saying, why the farm? Well, Dad wanted to get us out of Chicago, specifically me, because he thought I was some type of beast. Not really.
So when they bought the first farm, you were pretty much the
I was on the farm.
you were the only farmhand at the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. It was just me. And it was fulfilling my daddy's dream or his wish to get me out of Chicago so that I could see things grow and not see things die, as I did in Chicago quite a bit. But anyway, he felt that we needed to go out and learn how to raise vegetables and farm and things like that. So did Mom, because she was the one who inspired him to buy the farm so we could move out there. The mother was ready to get out of Chicago. And the farm was the place to be. A farm was a place to be. And in terms of teaching us all how to grow and prune trees and plow and plant, it was all Mother. It was all Mother. She was the head cook and bottle washer. Literally. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dad brought the money, But she was the one who was the captain of the ship. I can tell you that right now. She was the captain of the ship. And, her background, her ethics, and, it was all in helping us grow. Okay, of course, Dad, too, his ethics, his English way of life, and the influence of his father, your great-grandfather, was very strong in his life as I look back. And he was very close to his father. He was like the chosen one of his family because whenever Grandpa would come to town, he stayed with us. It's the only people he stayed with. One, because the dad, your grandfather, my dad, and Grandpa could sit for hours and talk. Now, there was times that I did not know what they were saying because they were speaking in their language. When I say their language, they were speaking fast. Their accent, I know what they're saying. Yeah.
Your dad could speak in a Bayesian accent?
Yeah, you just didn't hear him. He didn't, no, he never spoke to, yeah, right. But with Bajans, oh, man. Yeah, with Bajans, oh, yeah. And when Uncle Clarence would come by, oh, yeah. And I was a kid about his size, maybe younger than him, when Gladstone was around, Uncle Gladstone. But they say that he had a very heavy Bajan accent. Okay, so we get out to Bloomingdale. It was an 80-acre farm. But we weren't left there with nothing. He bought a tractor, brand new farm all-seat tractor. He upgraded the chicken coop. About 3 or 4 months after we got there were these boxes of baby chickens kept coming to the house until we had 1,000 baby chickens that I had to take care of, okay? And during the time of raising those baby chickens, I decided not to eat chickens anymore. Okay? Because one thing I found out about a chicken is that a chicken is cannibalistic. Okay? If there's a red spot on his brother chicken, he'll peck at it until it bleeds. And when it bleeds, the chicken is about dead, and they will almost eat the chicken. So now I just told you what chickens do. They eat themselves, and sometimes they eat other chickens. Anyway, we had these 1,000 chickens, and most of the chickens were female chickens, so they were laying eggs. So we were getting eggs upon eggs upon eggs, and I don't think we were ready for all these eggs, because to take the eggs to the market, they had to be culled. Now, when I say culled, it means to kill the sperm in the egg. However, since we did not have any male chickens around, they did not need to be culled. However, every once in a while, you would find a male chicken. So when the chicken man, we called him the chicken man, the guy who came around and made sure that your pens were clean and your eggs were ready for the market, he would make sure that there were no sperm in the eggs. He had a light, and he would throw his light through the egg, and he could see whatever, you know. And I know Mom and Dad were making a lot of money on shipping these eggs to Chicago. Guess how much they were making a dozen? It was 25 cents. But we had enough eggs at 25 cents a dozen to take care of all the needs that the farm needed, financial needs, you know. There were a lot of eggs. I mean, these chickens laid eggs every day, and we would send dozens of 12 eggs, you know, per carton to Chicago, all nicely wrapped and so forth and so on. The other thing was, there was in front of the house, there was about 20 acres, okay, that we plowed up and planted corn, okay. That was fun because the corn was grown very, very tall, and it just made the countryside look beautiful at the time. But there was one problem. With the first year, we did not harvest the corn because we were not knowledgeable about who in the community could do that for us, okay? So the corn sat there all winter, and we didn't harvest it. However, the next year, some of my friends from the farmers in the areas, especially the young men, you know, told me who to go to, who to get to harvest the corn, and from then on, the corn was harvested. The other thing on the farm was 100 apple trees and 100 peach trees. Now, I was told by the fruit farmers that these trees had to be pruned every year. Of course, who should prune them? Yeah, me. I was left to prune them. However, the trees were overgrown. They were hard to get to prune. So, although they were sprayed for bugs and mites and all these fruit flies and things like that, it was not a good harvest because the trees were not pruned correctly. It was mostly the fruit on the trees were given away. We would take bushels and bushels of those apples and peaches to Chicago, and Dad would give them to the people in the community, okay, where he had his business going, or people at churches, so forth and so on. The business that my father had was the rooming house business. Okay, he had a lot of not indigent people, but low income people living in his homes that he rented apartments out to. And I understood from Mother that he would give the fruit away. So high school was a different breed because it was the first time that I went to a high school, okay, where I was the only black person in the high school. I think my second year, another family, the Jackson family, came. But he was a year older than I, so he came in my sophomore year, so he was a junior when he came. And that was it. He graduated a year before I, and I graduated the following year after he did. Had great friends in the high school. Everybody was very, very, friendly folk. They were country folk.
Welcoming?
Yeah.
Did you deal with any racism?
Not really. Not openly racism. Especially, I was an athlete. I was on the basketball team, the baseball team, and the football team. And the coach made sure that the games that were played, that were scheduled on Friday, he would change them. He would have the league change them to Thursday so I could play. Matter of fact, his name was Kellogg. He was part of the Kellogg family in Battle Creek. The cereal people, okay, who you all know were Adventists, okay. He knew the deal, although he said he wasn't a great practicing Adventist, but he wanted to make sure I played the game, so that was nice of him. Okay, now the only racism that I found when I was going to high school was not in Bloomingdale, but in other cities, okay, around Bloomingdale where we would play. I know sometimes the other kids in the other school, would call the N-word and something like that, and that started a big fight. I never started the fight. It was my teammates who started the fight. So I was kind of protected, by my teammates. It was just a great time to go to high school. I had one friend there. Her name was Pat Miller. Pat Miller's dad was the postman who drove around and gave us the mail, okay. Her older brother owned the mortuary in town, okay. And they were just wonderful people. I know Mr. Miller, if he knew my dad was in town, he would drive by the house and they would sit and talk. Now, another thing about Bloomingdale, there was a famous person who lived about a mile from us on a lake called Bear Lake. I don't know if you know this name or not, but he was the heavyweight champion of the world. His name was Joe Louis. And he lived right around the corner from us. And he came to buy that house on that lake about a mile from us because of Dad. Now, Dad met him in Chicago in the alley of our house, okay, that we lived in Chicago. And when I say the alley of most homes in Chicago, had not only garages, but some of those garages were made into stables. People had horses, all right? And Joe Louis, the heavyweight champion, had a horse stabled in our alley. And Dad would, speak to him when he came to ride his horse. Matter of fact, Dad took a picture of Joe Louis one day, and Joe Louis had me on the horse. I was about, 5 or 6 years old or something like that. But that film was destroyed in a fire. It was a nice film, but anyway, yeah. We knew Joe Louis, the heavyweight champion of the world, yeah. When Dad moved us to Bloomingdale, somehow Joe Louis followed him, okay, and bought a house on a lake called Bear Lake. And it was a lake where my friends and I would go fishing. And we loved to go fishing at night because there was a little stream that was a tributary that went out of Bear Lake into a little river. And in that river at night, there were some big fish in there, and we would go spearfishing. To go spearfishing, you take a big gas lantern, and of course the stream wasn't deep, but you take your big lantern and the fish would be just sleeping, and you take a spear and you go, chow, and you got yourself a big fish. Yeah, it was fun. I've asked about spearfishing around here, and people say, man, you can't get a, permit to go spearfishing because the fish have no way to get away from you. In the dark, they're stunned, they're sleeping, and it's illegal to spearfish around now, you know. But I can see that because the fish has no, he's at your beck and call. Matter of fact, you could kick him, he'll just move. The Bloomingdale's grade school was not a happy place for Nathan, my brother. They would call him certain little names, you know, like little black Samba. And Nathan would have to come up to the high school and talk to me about these bad boys who would mess with him, you know. So we would have to go take care of the little bad boys that mess with Nathan, you know. Most of the time, I knew their parents, and I would take them to the parents. But there was one bully I had to slap in the face, so anyway, that was a long time ago. There was a book. I don't know if you guys knew the book, but there was a book that I grew up with in Chicago called Little Black Samba. Little Black Samba was a boy in Africa, okay, and his picture was on the front of the book. And he was black, and he had big lips, okay, and a big nose, and they painted his lips red, okay, and that was one of our first grade primers, learning how to read about Little Black Samba, okay, and it was hard to read. Dad felt that, and we all felt that way, that it was demeaning. It was demeaning book to all people of color, you know, and teaching little black children a devastating story of their heritage. It was a stupid, idiotic story of this little boy in Africa, okay? It made no sense, but it had words in there that we had to learn, and but, and, you know, this and that and all that. It was just a mess. So finally it was taken out of the schools around the time that I became a high school student, yeah. It was taken out of the public schools in Illinois. The military came recruiting, okay? And the recruiter that came to Bloomingdale High School was the Air Force recruiter. And he came to the house. One day when Dad was there, we set it up where Dad could hear this spiel that this Air Force recruiter was presenting me with. But he couldn't present it to just me. He had to present it to Mom and Dad. So we made a time. Dad came from Chicago to hear the recruiter. And the recruiter was talking about flying, okay? And that's why I signed up. Because he was a pilot, he was an ex-pilot, and he was recruiting pilots. So anyway, he had this great story about me going to the Air Force Academy. And he said that we need hotshot pilots in Korea. And your son would make a fine pilot. Dad said, well, no, he won't, because he is not going to be a hotshot pilot. He's not going to kill, so forth and so on. Gave him the spiel. So the recruiter turned his service. He said, okay, now you got to understand these recruiters, these military recruiters, not only do they recruit, but they get a bonus in their check for, bringing folk into the service, especially to the academies. So he turned his focus on the space program. He said, well, since you do not wish him to do that, the space program is coming on, okay? And we need astronauts. Now, my dad said, now, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. But Dad still had a fog about going to the moon and all this other stuff, But he said, now, if he can get an education through that, okay, that would be great. So this young man, started prepping me on the academy out in Colorado after graduation, okay, to come. All right. So that's where I really wanted to go, the Air Force Academy in Colorado. Now, come 1953, we had a new recruiter, and he was talking the same thing, but only he turned his focus on Korea, okay, because they needed pilots in Korea. All right. And that's when the dream was shattered, because Dad said, no, you're not going to get in a fighter jet and learn how to fly and kill folk. That's it. So the guy realized what he had done. He was very sorry, tried to, turn the story around, but Dad wouldn't hear it. Told him, see ya, bye. So anyway, I learned how to fly anyway, It was my dream to fly, which I learned. Matter of fact, remember when I took you guys up in the plane?
Oh, yeah.
I remember. You took Sean and me and Mom up on a set. Winton and Wayne weren't there.
Yeah. That was it. I don't even know if I had gone to the academy, if I'd loved it after I'd learned how to fly. It was a dream just to learn how to fly. It was never a dream to continue, like to become a ace or to become an airline pilot, anything like that. I just wanted to learn how to fly. Okay, I can control that plane. Fantastic. That's it. See ya. Bye. Yeah.
Now, when you were being recruited, wasn't your brother Irwin already in the service at that point? Or?
Yeah. He was at Fort Pickett. He went to Fort Pickett to learn how to become a medic. That's where the medics were. Now, Irwin, let me back up. Before he went to service, he had he was a licensed X-ray technician. All right. I don't think y'all knew that. Yeah. Irwin was a licensed X-ray technician. So before he went to service, he was already an X-ray technician. They sent him to Germany. I think he did not, fulfill his whole 4 years over there in Germany as an X-ray tech. I know he didn't, because Irwin spent a lot of time on Alps patrol. That's right. He was a skier. He skis. At least he used to. Yeah. And he was with a squad of men that patrolled the Alps on the border between Germany, France, and some of the Russian territories, But he said he had a great time doing that. Had a great time. Even when I was going to high school, Irwin was not around. He left home. He was at Andrews for a while, and from Andrews he went directly to his school. It was a school in Chicago to get his X-ray technician degree, and from there he went to service and didn't see Irwin that much. Irwin was was Irwin. He was my big brother, you know, gone. Okay. My little brother then was not Nathan because Nathan hadn't been born. It was Ronald. Okay. Ronald was 4 years younger than I, and we kept in touch. Matter of fact, there was a time that I thought Ronald, we were so close growing up, there was a time that I thought Ronald was a brother who just lived in another house. You know, that's how close we were. Yeah. But Ron and Pat were my close friends, okay, who took the place of Irwin at the time. Yeah. And even when Irwin came back from service from Germany, Irwin got married, and he was off in Chicago, and I was still in Michigan before I went to service, so I didn't see him that much. Didn't get to see Irwin that much. Yeah. Still do not get to see Irwin that much.